3R.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Klipsch Museum of Audio History's first live stream. We are live from Hope, Arkansas, and around the globe. We have some incredible guests tonight to get to, and some great announcements, exclusive announcements, and some real surprises. I'm Matt Sommers, and I'll be your host for tonight. Tonight, we're going to cover some really cool things. We're going to talk about the Paul W. Klipsch Birthday Bash and the week of events that are happening right now all week long. So some really cool stuff. So this morning we kicked it off with a great event we'll talk about, but there's a lot to talk about and unpack. We also have the opening of the beautiful Klipsch Welcome Center. We want to talk about that, which is where we're broadcasting from live tonight. And then also the launch of Paul W. Klipsch's final and ultimate loudspeaker. Roy Delgado said that it uses every trick we know, the Jubilee. So we're going to be talking about that as well tonight. Speaking of Roy, I'd like to introduce you to our featured guest tonight. And once in a while, you might hear a train in the background because there is a train track right beside the building, the Welcome Center. But I'd like to introduce you to our special guests tonight and have each of them come on and talk to me for a second. First and foremost, we have museum curator Jim Hunter. He is also the speed record holder for a yard of beer, as I understand. Welcome, Jim. And then we also have with us Rogelio Delgado Jr., Chief Bonehead, and also the midwife of the Jubilee.
The midwife? I was more like the quarter wife.
and lastly, we have Trey Cannon, a Klipsch legend who is saving the world from sonic stupidity on the forums and on Facebook for us.
And who's be joining us as well. On him.
Exactly. And then next to me in the command center is Glenn Mosby, who is helping us tonight and producing this. We'd like to also give out a shout out to Brittany Kelly and Amanda Knight, who are helping in the background as well. Thank you guys so much for helping produce the show. Cool. The other thing we wanted to mention is tonight we will also be giving away some prizes, 5 prizes to be exact. TBD what they are. Maybe Mr. Delgado will reveal those a little bit later. But we'll be giving away 5 prizes to the best 5 questions in the chat. So ask your questions in the chat, and then after the event, we will we'll start awarding those prizes, and we'll post the list of winners as well. So we'll reach out to you for where to ship the product. So
make sure that you suck up to Chief Bonehead.
Exactly. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty getting Jim and Trey's camera on to be able to see them. But I do want to take a minute and thank our sponsors who are helping us pull this off tonight. We have some great sponsors. First and foremost, the Hope Tourism Commission. We could not do this without you. Second of all, Farmers Bank and Trust, great sponsor. And then we have Apt Electronics, audioclassics.com, Klipsch, of course, Klipsch. Thank you to Klipsch for sponsoring Audio Video Therapy, Audio Advice, and Paducah Home Theater. So thank you so much for contributing and helping us pull this off. I'd like to open this up to the group as well with Jim and Trey and Roy Delgado. Could you guys please let us know what did we do this morning? I'd like to know a little bit about how that went this morning. There was something that happened in this very building. Maybe Jim, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we had our ribbon cutting for our second facility out of 4. We've had a ribbon cutting out at the airport for the education center. That was a couple of years ago. And today we did it for the Visitors Center, which is in downtown Hope, right next door to the Bill Clinton National Park. So we had probably 50 or more people from town. And what we're certainly trying to do is get local support. We have not had that much, but we just recently got to the point where we could hire an executive director. and she comes to us with a lot of experience and in-depth Hope connections. And so we are hoping to make this a turning point, so to speak, and make this museum into a serious venture, not just a club for Klipsch fanatics.
Well, wait a minute, Hunter, we can make it a club. Ha ha.
One of the cool things about what happened this morning was that not only did we see the community coming together, with the mayor and various representatives, just being here in this space and seeing, as Jim mentioned, new executive director Becky Moore take over the reins and really was working with the crowd and showing what the museum is all about. So there's some really cool stuff that has been lined up this week, and Becky's actually going to drop in here in a few minutes and talk to us about some of that stuff. But talk to us a little bit about this house. Why is this house important? What was it originally? What's the background? I'd love to know that.
This house was built in 1921 by the daughter of one of the founding fathers of Hope, Arkansas. It is one of the last historic large homes in Hope. Naturally, it's right next to the railroad tracks, so we will probably encounter some locomotives here shortly.
Don't stand in front of them, Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And what do we hope to do with the building? I know that there's a design for each specific room.
Well, it is the visitor center, so it will be the face of the museum. And what we are doing in two of the rooms is recreating period audio equipment. One of the rooms is the mid-1950s. That's the room I'm in, with the knotty pine paneling, naturally.
Mine's Trey.
Trey!
You know what? I like naughty better, Trey.
The room that Roy is in is going to be dedicated to the mid-70s.
See that?
Now we have systems set up and operating, but we have not gotten, so to speak, the final hardware, the final electronics, the turntables. So we have a ways to go, but we are up, limping along, and we will continue to refine and get these rooms much more specific to their decade.
So we are going period specific on all this stuff.
On these two rooms.
Well, Hunter.
Now, in the back, we have a home theater, and that's what you are in. And then we have a gift shop in the front and a large living room, which is for greeting guests. Hopefully the guests that walk over here from the Clinton operation.
Awesome. So foot traffic is definitely going to be increased and help with visibility for the museum. I think that's fantastic. Now,
we want a percentage of the 10,000 visitors a year that they get.
Awesome.
And we're right next door.
That's great. And it makes it a cool little cultural hub downtown. If people want to see kind of hit the museum corridor, if you will, there's some really cool stuff here that it's all walkable.
Yes. The Hope Downtown Network has been working for several years now to revitalize downtown. And we have just become a pretty integral part of that.
Well, so speaking of period rooms, Jim, can you describe what's behind you and Trey? What's actually installed back there, and does it work?
Okay. The speaker right behind me is a 1954 Klipsch horn, and it was donated to us a few months ago by the El Dorado, Arkansas Baptist Church. Paul recorded the Messiah from their choir in 1954, and I believe this speaker was a part of that recording session. The mate to this is a 1957 Klipsch horn. It looks just like this one, and I believe that it probably made it to the Baptist church right when stereo was, debuting.
And the most important part, Hunter?
Pardon?
And the most important part is they sound freaking amazing.
They will surprise you.
Yes. We played them.
And they are being powered by an early Marantz solid state preamp that's on top of a Marantz 8B, I think.
Fantastic.
So we do have some of the authentic pieces here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come to the visitor center, you can start your journey, and it is a journey for so many people, learning about the life of Paul Klipsch and the community in which Klipsch came up in. But also, you can listen to this system in stereo here at the visitor center.
Yes, and we also have stereo recordings that Paul made himself going back to 1953 that you can hear and also be amazed at the quality that he achieved at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, a lot has happened just since this morning. The place looks great. We've got a lot of stuff going on this week. Maybe you guys could fill us in on some other things that are happening this week. I know there's a barbecue tomorrow, right? There's a cookout.
Well, tonight is the founders dinner, and then tomorrow there's really not a lot going on until tomorrow evening, and there will be a paid dinner here on the lawn, and we will have a live jazz group performing for this dinner.
Fantastic.
Now we go to Friday. We have our annual membership meeting, followed by a live auction that is headlined by a pair of Klipsch horns. And then that evening, there's going to be a walking Mardi Gras type parade in Hope that will about 6 o'clock, and that will end at another of the Klipsch Museum's facilities, which is the Paul W. Klipsch Auditorium that is the second floor of City Hall. I never thought that I would have a key to City Hall.
Neither did anyone else.
Yeah, Hunter, but they made it that big, Hunter.
Yeah.
You can't lose it.
But anyway, we will be having 3 concerts there, an acoustic set, a gospel set, and a rock set. And that's another paid event.
Hey, Hunter, what about the metal set? What happened to that?
The what?
The metal set. Punk
Metal
rock.
set? Well, where are you, man?
So
Saturday, we're going to be doing tours of the museum itself and of the education center. And then Saturday evening, there will hopefully outdoors be a demonstration of the Klipsch Jubilees that are imminent to be released on the public.
Cannot wait for that. And we're going to get into a deep dive with Jubilees. I just want to clarify, Thursday night, tomorrow night, here at the Welcome Center, dinner and jazz. It's $25 per person if you'd like to join us. Proceeds go to the museum. It's a great fundraiser for us. Come out, spend some time, walk through the facility, and listen to some great jazz. And then Friday night, again, there's the train. On Friday night, at the Paul W. Klipsch Auditorium in City Hall, there's a concert, actually 3 concerts, 3 acts, and that also is a fundraiser for the museum, and it's $25 per person. So we're encouraging you to come out, support the museum, and donate with your presence to listen to some live music, just like Paul Klipsch would have enjoyed as well. So we're looking forward to that. And then a little bit about the tours on Saturday. Are we doing just the museum, or are we doing the education center as well?
It's my understanding that there's going to be the education center. Naturally, I'm going to be the guy at the museum.
Exactly. Okay.
Becky may have more to say on the education center.
Well, let's see if we can get Becky in here, and maybe she can talk to us a few minutes about kind of what's coming up.
Were you gonna have to tie her down really, really hard because she's like a spark plug. She's all over the place.
Here she comes. I see her now. I'm going to swap chairs with her, and she can talk about kind of what's going on this week, and maybe give a little bit of color to what Jim put on the calendar.
Oh, she has her crayons.
So
right,
I
Becky?
heard in the next room that y'all were sharing the schedule for the event. So I thought I'm supposed to provide the color commentary for all of this. Hello
Hi,
there.
Becky.
How are you? So great turnout this morning. Let's just start right there. I know you've talked about what happened this morning, the ribbon cutting, the open house, or the grand opening, and the room was packed. The home was packed, and that's what we want to see. So great beginning. We had quite a few folks saying some kind words about what's going on. Roy spoke kindly. I think he did. I believe he did.
I got you fooled.
So a lot of folks are very, very curious about what's happening in this house, and that's what we like to see. And we actually had our first visitors this afternoon. And I'll have to tell this quick story if you don't mind. We had a mother and son pop in, and this is going to happen. They thought they were going into the visitor center of the Clinton National Park, which is next door. And so, but we accepted them, and we congratulated them for coming in and joining us. And as we went through the house, they just really had so many questions, and they became so excited as to what was happening right here. And it was much a surprise to them. They ended up buying event T-shirts and took some brochures. We had a Klipsch truck parked out in the driveway. They stood beside the truck and had their picture made. So it was a fun accident or a fun happenstance. And then before they left, they said, "Are we your first visitors?" And I didn't want to break their heart because we had a lot of visitors. But I said, "Yes, you absolutely were our first visitors." So walked away very, very happy. So we look forward to the partnership that we will have with the Clinton National site. We're already talking about sharing some event time from time to time. And so that took place this morning. And then, of course, we're excited about tomorrow evening. We will have dinner on the ground. And we've had some very strange weather in Hope, Arkansas lately. Yesterday it was sleeting. Today it's sunny and quite warm outside right now. And so we're very thankful that tomorrow night will be more of what we're seeing today. So we'll be outside. I have dinner on the ground, and one of the local restaurants is catering, so that's fun. And then we will have a silent auction. Many, many, many silent auction items will be up for grabs, up for bid tomorrow. And we'll also have a jazz trio. And so a local young man will be participating in the jazz trio, and then several musicians from the Texarkana Symphony. And so Texarkana, Texas will be in the house tomorrow night. So we're excited about that. And then Friday is a full jam-packed day. And I know you've already visited about the annual meeting and the live auction. Roy's all excited. Jim's all excited. So we want you to be excited with us. And so come out and bid. And then we're going to have a wonderful evening. Not sure if we will be able to have the parade. We were going to have a walking parade, but by Friday, it's supposed to snow or sleet. So the weather. And so we might have to cancel that. We're just going to wait and see. But Friday evening in the Klipsch Municipal Auditorium, some great groups will perform. And I know you've heard a little bit about that. So we will start with an acoustic set. Jeff Matlock will come back again. He's a great bass player. And then we will have gospel, and then we'll roll into good old rock and roll. So we're excited about that happening. And I'm not sure if I have filled in any of the blanks, but I believe I have.
That's fantastic. Thank you
But
so
again,
much.
hello. Nice to be on board.
Welcome back.
You know, Becky is always like full of energy. We need to get her closer to Hunter, and see if that rubs off a little bit.
That's
Just
awesome.
kidding, Hunter, don't hit me.
You wouldn't have far to go.
Reach you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I love the fact that we've kind of walked through what's going on this week for the Paul W. Klipsch birthday bash. Lots of cool music, live music, important, right?
Wait, Matt, before you continue, everybody have something to drink because it is Paul's birthday. And I want to make a toast to, to the man, the reason we're here, the reason we get to work here, the reason that, well, I don't even call it work. I just want to say, happy birthday to Paul W. Klipsch. He drove me mad sometimes, but most times he just drove me. Happy birthday, Paul.
Cheers.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Cheers.
birthday. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Well, this is fantastic. I wanted to remind you guys again that we are doing a giveaway. We've got 5 prizes. I think Roy's actually got them close. Dun, dun, dun. Show it, Vanna. Awesome. We got 5 prizes to give away, and they're going to be the best questions chosen by probably Roy in the chat. So we will give them away post, so we don't have to spend time on each, and we can get right to the conversation with these guys.
Vanna, eat your heart out, Ruka.
I think we have a minute here. I would like to pause and bring in another special guest. We have a major announcement. As you know, this last year, the museum started off with its first publication that I had the honor of working on with Jim Hunter and releasing through the generous help of Klipsch. And so on the coattails of that book, we are going to be adding to our stable of publications. Got a couple of guests that I'd like to join. Do you have Paul and Barbie on the line there?
I have Barbie.
That'd be great if you could add them in.
Hi.
Hi, Barbie.
Hey guys, how are you?
Welcome to the live stream. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here. Feels very professional.
We're just hanging out drinking.
Yeah, if we look professional, they weren't really faking it, Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like I'm in a TV studio. It's great.
And we're doing it wrong. Well, Barbie, I don't want to steal your thunder, but this group I know is going to be very anxious to hear what you have to say and what you'd like to talk about. So, can you tell us about what is the next step in the publication world for the museum?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask, first of all, if everybody knows what we were planning to do with the book. And if not, I can kind of give a brief run through of where we've been so far and where we're going.
I would just start with what we're doing.
Cool. All right, cool. Well, for those who don't know me, my name is Barbie. My partner, Paul, and I were DJs and audio enthusiasts. We also run a magazine here in New York City. And it was through our journey in DJing and that we landed on Klipsch. Here in New York City, there's a big lineage of underground dance parties that use Klipsch horns dating back to 1970, and a man named David Mancuso. He was considered to be one of the pioneers of modern, or is considered to be one of the modern dance music pioneers as we know it today. So at his memorial, and he sadly passed away some years ago, it was his protege and fellow DJ and audio enthusiast, Colleen Cosmo Murphy, who was a friend of the museum as well, communicated that David loved The Dope from Hope. And we thought it was a book, and we started trying to find the book and to learn more about it, but turns out they were just sort of loose papers, newsletters. And this gave us the idea of turning them into a book, which we presented to Colleen, and with her help, we were able to get in touch with all of you guys. So in 2019, Paul and I traveled to Hope, Arkansas. We went to the pilgrimage. It was amazing. And that kind of solidified this idea that we really should do it, that it was something that everybody wanted. And so following the few months after that, we kind of put our heads down and started working on the campaign closely with the Kickstarter team. And we were so close. We were trying to launch the campaign mid-March of 2020. And as we can imagine, for obvious reasons, we decided to sort of pull the plug. Everything was done. We had budget, rewards, printing, distribution, launch events, press, community support. We just had to hit go. But, it was a little too unpredictable, and it all got really scary a little quickly. So we pulled the plug. We're glad that we did. But we never really abandoned the idea of having this book come to fruition. So as we locked down, some things that we started to notice is that people staying at home we're being forced to revisit the daily simple joys of just everyday living. And that meant for us also ample time to like revisit our records and like revisit our setups at home. And we saw huge interest of hi-fi grow in the past 2 years, and it's sort of reached new and sort of young audiences and new horizons. So now that things feel a little bit better, we're excited to reinstate the campaign. We have our sights set on launching on summer of 2022. It's still going to be as planned, crowdfunded via Kickstarter. And it'll be run by Paul and I with the support of Klipsch Group, and then with obviously the support of the Klipsch Museum, as well as Colleen and Jim and so on. So really excited.
Oh, that's fantastic. We are so looking forward to this. So, the gist of it, if I understand correctly, this is something we've been working on for quite a bit, but, the Dope from Hope, was a newsletter that Paul Klipsch himself started and sent out. And we are collecting all of the Dope from Hope papers into a single volume that you will be able to pre-order on Kickstarter. So we're making that announcement today that is on. It's ready to go. It's the next step in museum publications. Jim, could you give us just a little bit of background, and Trey, feel free to kick in too, about why did Paul send out the Dope from Hope? What is it about, and what do they contain? Oh, you guys are off. Where'd you go?
Perfect timing.
I didn't do it.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like they're talking in the background. All right. Well, anyway, we know that that Paul Klipsch, would send these dealer newsletters out, and sometimes they might be talking about, upgrades to the history of a tweeter or a horn, and sometimes it might be how to construct your own false corners or why efficiency is important. So there was a lot of it that was built, sort of around the idea of needing a communication before email. So from what I understand, Barbie, you guys are going to scan all of these pages, each one individually, and as they are created.
Yeah. So Jim has shown us the complete compilation of all the Dope from Hopes, including, things that weren't published and sort of work in progress communications that may have not made it out of Hope. So the idea is to scan all of those, compile them. We're going to have contributions by Colleen, written contributions by Colleen and Jim. And this is going to go into a roughly 300 to 400, I want to say 300, I can't remember exactly, for a hardcover book. It's going to be beautiful. It'll be, something kind of like you could keep it on your coffee table, but also refer to, because it's going to have so much great information. So yeah, we're really excited.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if people want to find out information about this, where would they go to?
Yeah, so we have a website as well as some social accounts. The best way to follow along is to go to www.dopefromhope.com. Over there, you'll see a little sign up for news, little text window. You should definitely do that, because that's how we're going to tell people when the campaign is live or as we start to get near the date and so on. Thanks for posting the links. And then we also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. Choose your own adventure. We have been featuring over the past, we've been a little dormant during the lockdown, but up until launch, we were featuring and taking submissions from people sharing their own, Klipsch setups at home. So that was really fun too. We had all sorts of people from all over the world send in photos. So that was really exciting.
Oh, fantastic. Now that we've got Jim and Trey back, give us a little bit of history about the Dope from Hope. Why does it exist? What was important about it?
Well, the Dope from Hope was essentially a dealer newsletter, and then got taken up by a lot of the actual customers as well. It was, as Paul would say, to simplify things, say it in words of one cylinder. And that's what these were. It was talking as much as possible to the common man. About 7 years before he actually published the first one, he had the concept and ran it by one of his dealers. And he, had the Dope from Hope as the title at that time. This was in the mid-50s. And he allowed as to how most people would consider that he was the dope from Hope, but he didn't care. So about 7 years after talking about it, he released the first one. You know, they're all volume 1, number 1, etc. Now, the copies that we have in the museum are not all pristine. You know, we have what we have, whatever was saved. And so we will do very good scans of whatever the material is. And we would certainly like to get better copies if somebody sees one that they happen to have one in better condition.
I
Awesome.
remember, sorry, Matt, I remember when I first started with Klipsch and started asking questions, Hunter pointed me to the dope from Hope.
Read this.
Read this. And so it was used as training tools early on in my history here.
That is super helpful. I'm sure it was just like, here's a fire hydrant, drink.
Yes. Open wide.
Fantastic. Well, and it's great. I think that we're collecting this, you know, in a single volume to be able to put this out. And I love the fact that it's museum scan. So if Paul Klipsch himself happened to write in the margins, or there was something else stuck to it, or it was on a clipboard or whatever, you see all of that as if it, you know, had existed throughout history. It's not just a PDF of the article.
Yeah, I think that's also really exciting. Sorry, Jim. But yeah, I love to see that, you know, what ended up there, the pencil scribbles or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I also love the fact that you can watch the graphic evolution of the company go from typewritten pages to sometimes it has a logo, and then sometimes that logo gets a little more enhanced, and then sometimes there's a signature, you know, and you can just kind of see as we move through the technology how it just continued to get a little bit more advanced. When did it stop, Jim? When did Dope from Hope end?
In the 80s.
Wow.
I don't have
So
an
went
exact
for
date, but I think in the early 80s.
Went for a good long time.
Yeah. Now this collection, you know, it grew over time, and over time, a lot of them were dropped out. So you might get a collection that didn't have everything that came before.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is reassemble every single one that we can find.
That does not sound like an easy project.
When you see this pile of cabinets that all that stuff is in, no, it's needle in the haystack comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, Barbie. Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to this edition coming out. Again, it will be a Kickstarter, so you pre-order it, you commit to ordering it, and then when it's ready, it's shipped to you. Very cool deluxe coffee table book of the Dope from Hope. First time in a combined edition ever seeing the light of day like this in mass publication. So thank you so much for joining us on our very first live stream, Barbie.
You got it. Anytime. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
See ya.
We're going to move on a little bit and talk about the Jubilee. But before we do, we need to have a conversation about our sponsors again, because some people have joined us here a little bit later. So I would like to share, I'm going to share a slide that has our sponsor logos on it. There we go. Glenn, if you don't mind putting that up, that would be fantastic. So in addition to this fine group of sponsors, all of which are audio related, and we want to show their logos as well, we want to give a special shout out to the Hope Tourism Commission, who has made all of this possible, and Farmers Bank and Trust, who has really made all of this possible. But again, APT, Audio Classics, Klipsch, Audio Video Therapy, Paducah Home Theater, and Audio Advice. So thank you guys so much. And
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, please give those vendors a shout out and follow them online as well. They have a lot to say about not only the Klipsch products, but just the whole world of audio and video.
Matt looked like he froze. He looks,
how it catches on those particular faces.
yeah, he's got that constipated look. Matt,
I'm gonna turn. There we go.
There
Right.
he is.
Sorry,
I was going to bring you a Tums, bro.
yeah, I don't know what happened. I just got a little congested. I want to have you three, if you could, just talk a little bit about the Klipsch Jubilee, because this is really Paul's last and ultimate project. And maybe give us a little bit of background about why that's important, and then I'm going to go work on our special guest and get him prepped in the green room.
Trey, go first.
The first thing I remember about the Jubilee was when I started with Klipsch up on the hill with you. What was that? 99, the summer of 99. There were still prototype pieces in the pro room. The back storage room in the lab was called the pro room, and that's where all the big stuff was kept. And in the pro room, there were prototype for the LF cabinets, starting something similar with a rounded front like a K-horn, all the way to very close to what you have currently. Well, the professional version of what you have currently. Mm-hmm. And it was always so cool to have to have that stuff around, to see the history of how that stuff started. And that was in 99. So you had to have been doing that work well before 99.
Did you have any conversations with Paul about that?
I did not. That's one of my regrets with Paul, is I had very few audio conversations with Paul. All the conversations with Paul were mostly about life. Telling me how he proposed to Valerie, or about
or how to keep out of jail,
or what things that he did to his car.
Oh yeah.
Altimeters in the dash, those kinds of things.
I'm scaring the crap out of people driving.
Oh my Lord, yes. So it was mostly those kinds of conversations with Paul. I regret not having more audio conversations, but the life conversations with Paul were just as important.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
if not more important.
I agree. How about you, Hunter? What do you remember about the Jubilee? It was actually K-horn 2, wasn't it, Hunter?
Pardon me?
It was actually the K-horn 2.
That was the consideration, to take it up another level. Mm-hmm. You and Paul published a paper in the Audio Engineering Society. I believe it was in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul's last published paper, he was 96.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, and he never acted his age, Hunter. Kind of like Trey.
Until he got where he had trouble walking.
Yeah, the last 2 years were kind of rough.
Yeah.
But you never, I'm sure you've had conversations with him, Hunter, because you guys used to talk all the time.
I know that in 99, we took the Jubilee to CES, and it was, displayed in Caesar's Palace.
Yeah. And I remember after that, Trey told me I had to get on the forum to answer some questions. And I said, I don't want to get on the forum. And he goes, no, you got to answer.
He did fight that quite a bit.
Yeah. What?
You did fight that quite a bit.
Yeah, because Trey's going because he was being a wiener and did not want to answer the question. So he wanted me to answer him. And I'm going like, dude, no, I don't want to get on there and talk about why we didn't do the Jube. And he whined and whined like he normally does. Bless his wife's heart.
We're bullshit button.
Where's my bullshit button? You guys, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Roy, but I do have a special guest that's going to join us right now and probably can add to that story. We would like to welcome here our CEO and president of Klipsch, Mr. Paul Jacobs, has joined us and would like to talk about the Jubilee as well.
TPJ,
welcome, Paul.
Bro.
I just, as I was looking at what I see on the screen, I realized that if some missiles could hone in on this group, those four, literally the audio industry as we know it will be brought to its knees. So I hope you guys are in a safe bunker somewhere.
Yeah, we really need that now.
That's why
You
we
know,
put
Paul, I would hide under Hunter's chair.
How are you guys?
Doing good.
very well.
PJ.
Oh
That's
man,
good.
thank you so much for joining us, Paul. We were just talking about the Jubilee, and they were talking about sort of the the inception of the product. But then Jim mentioned bringing it to CES with Paul Klipsch, talking about the product in the early days. I know you were there. I think we all were there at that time.
Yeah, I remember it well, and I remember so many difficulties that we ran into, and some of the reasons that it was delayed so long, and then Mr. Delgado and crew found a way to work around all of the conflicting desires from different areas of the organization to build the cinema products and then turn it into one of the hottest underground loudspeakers that the world has ever known. Because I mean, really, the Jubilee was secretly launched these many years ago, and I'm like, Roy should absolutely be a salesperson, because he was going to let nothing stop him from getting that thing to market. Whoever he had to work around to get it done. So that was, I'm happy that he did, because I think that the legend and lore of what was going on underground, is one of the things that just kept driving this thing to the perfected level that it is today. And I'm sure Paul Klipsch should say nothing's ever perfect, and Roy probably, and Jim, and the rest of you might say it, but this speaker, as near as I can tell, is about as perfect as a loudspeaker could ever get.
That's fantastic. And the idea that Paul Klipsch, not only was it his final project, but it was his ultimate project, right? It was going to be the Klipsch Horn 2 originally, I think.
Yeah. It was going to be the Klipsch.
Yeah, I remember, and I'm trying to remember whether it was on Paul's last CES or whether it was the CES that we brought the Jubilee. But I remember Paul and Valerie came to CES, and we had a display on the main show floor, and they had a beautiful almost throne for Paul. And I was one of the people in the company. I'm like, I think this is totally unfair. I mean, I think that, this is tough on Paul. I think that we're asking an awful lot on him. And at one point during those days before he went to the floor, I mentioned to him, if you don't feel like doing this or anything, just let me know, and I'll make sure you don't have to. And that's when I realized what a passion that Paul had to get out, whatever his physical state was. And yes, he had to sit down, but I remember so distinctly how passionate he was to go to the floor and see all these people and see the friends and relationships, meet new people that were believers. And I remember him being on the floor, sitting in that chair, and people lined up. It was one of the biggest lines. It was bigger than if Metallica or something had shown up. And it was one of those things that I realized, the passion, how deep the passion ran for him. And it wasn't just about building the speakers, but it was meeting the people that had the similar beliefs, or people respected what he had done all those years. And I'll never forget all of those people lined up, and it was like a light bulb went on for me. And it's like, this is what made this man so great, or one of the many things. But man, his passion for people and talking with people and sharing ideas, sharing humor, and of course, building great products. And I'll never forget it. It was those little things that when you look back on your life and you say, how did I become the person I am? It's those little things that are sort of packed away that you hear me talking about. I remember it so vividly. I mean, 1,000 things that have happened in my life that I have no recollection of, but man, do I ever remember that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And all those people that came to pay respect too, Paul.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, because, and it's one of the things that I've said before in some different interviews and things that I did recognize. I was smart enough at my younger age, much younger. I mean, I'm only 40 now, so I was around 12 during those days when I first started the company. But I was always smart enough to realize that I was experiencing something that not a lot of people would. I was starting in a business with someone like Paul W. Klipsch. And I got audiences with Paul W. Klipsch, and I get to watch him work and hear him talk and drink a beer with him, or drink some Bushmill with him, or have a meal with him, hear him talk to people. And I have some of the great memories because I was smart enough at that time to lock down as many of those as I possibly could. and I'll always have those memories with me because it was so impactful on my just a young 12-year-old starting out in business. So.
Oh man, thanks, Paul, for those memories. That's and that's a really cool thing. Like you said, it will live on, and you'll carry that with you forever. When people change your life, or you come in contact with people who have changed lives. That's something that I think echoes, and definitely the Paul Klipsch spirit echoes throughout the industry. I want a quick question I had was I know there's a lot of things to love about the new Jubilee and what it does and what it can do. What's your favorite part about that product? Is it the aesthetics? Is it the fact that it's a two-way? What do you think?
I think it's that it's so lightweight, right, Paul?
I think the portability is something that I anticipated. So I took my pair to the beach just this weekend, and it was fantastic. There are a couple of things that I would say, and I before I answer the question, I do want to say something about the people that impact your life. So, Paul Klipsch had a huge impact, but I remember the first time I met Roy Delgado. I remember the first time that I met Jim Hunter. I remember the first time I met Matt Sommers, and Trey Cannon. And every one of you, I could go through memories of every one of you. With Roy, I remember the arguments in the battle up on the hill while we were eating something from, Cherry's Bakery, or with Jim Hunter, man, after we would work hard going out in Hunter's growing, peppers, and we're shooting the potato guns. And Trey, like so many people, where we would have projects in Indianapolis and somebody would say, that Trey Cannon's incredible. No one else could figure out my problem. But at one phone call to Trey and Matt, the stuff that you and I have done. So while Paul Klipsch was, left an indelible impression on me, so did everyone that's on this call, because all of you, and I think Paul would say the same thing. He didn't do it on his own. Yeah. He had great people around him. And, his spirit is in... and his spirit is in every one of you, and it can be like anything we talk about today, that passion that he brought to it. Every one of you, I felt it at different times in my life. And, we've been together 30 years, I'm on my 31st year. So it's a long time. So what do I like best about the Jubilee? As a product itself, cosmetically, I think it's a beautiful piece of art. And for anyone that knows me, I'm not, in my home, I'm not a person that likes to have a lot of things. I'd like to have a few things that in everything, whether it's the way my books are stacked, or it's the speakers that I have, or a simple piece of art, I like it to be impactful. And so I love that. But honestly, sonically, when you listen to them, it's the most effortless thing that I've ever experienced. You hear in a great hi-fi that you shouldn't hear the equipment. Those beautiful speakers, absolutely, they're liquid and they just fade away when you listen to music. And I think that that's probably my favorite part. And I would add a comment to that. The passion that went into this from Roy and the other folks that worked on this. If you watch any of the shows with the great chefs, one of the things I always refer to is, they taste a dish and they're like, there's no love and passion in that. And there's a lot of loudspeakers and there's a lot of audio equipment out there. There's no love and passion. It's just people doing the checkbox. When you listen to and you touch and feel the Jubilee, it gets all the check boxes. All of that stuff is done. But what sets it apart from most speakers is, 25 years of love and passion that went into that product. And I think it's one of the things that makes it probably the most extraordinary thing I'll experience, in my career in the industry.
Oh, that's amazing, and thank you for the kind words, Paul. We feel absolutely the same about you. It has been an incredible journey, and I'm glad we were on this together. And bringing this product to market, I think as a brand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you got to have at some point a flagship and a statement that sort of stands for what you're about. And the Jubilee to me just continues to do that. Fully horn loaded system. What it can do from an efficiency standpoint. It all goes back to sort of the tenets of the brand. But I would hope that you would agree with that. But that's a fantastic statement for the brand.
Well, I agree completely. And one of the things that any brand risks, is, especially over long periods of time where you're growing and, there's been some ownership changes and a variety of things like that, the true north can be a little foggy. And, over my years at the company, there have been a few very foggy days. And the thing about something like the Jubilee is, man, it brings you back to true north, and it makes you reevaluate a whole lot of what you're doing. And I think that it's important for employees to and our retail partners, our distribution partners. I think it's important to see that this stuff matters to us, and what we do to grow the business and try and make sure that the brand is relevant to the next generation and a larger group of people is that true north has got to be true north. And if we hadn't done the Jubilee, if our heritage programs products were not still around, people would begin to say, well, what is the true north? Is it, I mean, when are you guys going to start building $29 speakers and that's the only thing that you do? And so, as at the University of Notre Dame, for anybody that knows their football, they have Touchdown Jesus. And every game when the players run out, they raise their hand and they hit Touchdown Jesus. And I've always felt like, in Indianapolis, when you come into the engineering center, I always felt like that the art that was there, the statement about Klipsch engineering was kind of our Touchdown Jesus. I would say that that's been replaced by the new Jubilee. That really is Touchdown Jesus. When you think about what Paul stood for, what engineering meant, the love and passion that goes into a product, I really think that the Jubilee is our Touchdown Jesus. And I think that it helps set us up for the next 50 years.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I would also say that, the fine folks of Hope, Arkansas, you are invited to come listen to the Jubilees at the Visitor Center on Saturday night and be among the first in the world to have heard this legendary speaker fully realized. Paul Jacobs, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking time. I know you're a very busy person these days, but thanks for your perspective on the Jubilee, and really, much love to you from all of us.
Hey, Paul, before you go, Paul, I've been working on the Thunderstick though, bro.
Oh, the funny part, and this is an inside joke, but there were actually people at that meeting that wanted to know when the Thunderstick was coming to market, and it made me question everything I thought I knew about life. honestly,
and Paul, the first time that I one of my life moments, talking about how everybody was special to you. Well, I knew I had grown a special fondness for Trey when I bailed him out of jail.
It's
the first time.
You never forget your first time, right?
I felt that way the first time too. It's really weird. I mean, Trey, you just, every time for each of us, we've gone through that experience, and just such love for you. So,
well, I appreciate the love, guys. I really do.
Matt, honestly, I mean, I'm busy like everyone else, but I got into this business and wanted to go to work for Klipsch for a particular reason. I've learned to love building a sustainable, scalable business because it allows me to have more people work for us and create careers and opportunities. That was something I had to learn to do. But, music was my first passion and my first love. And, doing things like this and talking about this stuff, this is the passion. I realized some time ago, though, if I'm going to be CEO, I have to fall in love with building a scalable, sustainable business, because that's where the money comes to, help support, whether it's the museum or invest in doing something like the Jubilee. You get to the point where you're like, hey, all those things you believe that, that money doesn't matter and building a business doesn't matter, only purity matters. But the fact is, you have to fund this stuff. Yeah. And I've learned to love it. But what we're doing tonight's the stuff that I'm passionate about, why I got in this in the first place. So I'm happy to be here, and, hope this is a fantastic, few days for everyone, and, love to see you guys. I'm planning a trip down to Hope soon, and, I'm excited. I mean, I have such incredible memories about my time I spent there, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again soon down there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
See you.
Have a great night. All right. Thank you, Paul, for joining. Yeah, appreciate that. Oh man, I always love talking to Paul. He brings a great perspective to it. So I wanted to let everybody know on the live stream that we're getting ready to head into our Q&A session. So we're going to start pulling stuff from the chat. Now, not everybody's going to be a prize winner. Those will be determined after the event. But if you have a question for Roy, Chief Bonehead, Trey Cannon, Jim Hunter, we'd love to let them expound for a while. We've got, the next half hour to really kind of dig into this. So I will let you guys.
Hey, Matt, can I have a timeout?
Yeah, go ahead. Do you need a timeout right now? You need to go into the timeout chair?
Too many beers, bro. I'll see you in a bit.
Okay, bye. All right, well, if you have a question for Jim Hunter or Trey Cannon, Roy's taking a break. But I saw there was a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Because the video swapped when we put it up on the screen.
Isn't that great? Are you guys just watching Roy's empty chair? Well, we should start asking some questions. We're getting a lot of questions about the history of the Jubilee. Let's start there a little bit. I know Roy's taking a break, but again, Jim and Trey, talk a little bit about sort of that. For people who are Klipsch fans, they get it. It's horn loaded. It's a two-way, right? What does that really mean? What does that mean to a benefit of somebody who doesn't know anything about speakers? What are they going to get out of that?
I guess go ahead.
The original Klipsch horn was a two-way, and as recording technology improved, frequencies beyond the capability of a mid-range showed up, and he had to add a tweeter to get that extension with the technology of the drivers of the day. And so it became a three-way, and it went for decades that way. But for a long time, even before the Jubilee gelled, he was interested in getting it back to a two-way. One crossover frequency is a lot easier to deal with than two.
Less error.
Spatially, right? You only have one path length difference to deal with. I just think he wanted to get it back closer to the original. And as the big limiting factor was that the Klipsch horn woofer, the way it is folded, you cannot go very high in frequency. When you get to 400 hertz, it's starting to fall apart. A high frequency driver getting down to 400 is very difficult to tolerate that power and still go out to very high frequencies.
Especially at the size of frequency
right.
that they're doing, the size of driver they're using.
So the key thing was to get the woofer cabinet to go higher in frequency so that they could, it could meet up with a driver, a mid-range driver that could go all the way out to the top end. And
gotcha.
So that was the beginning, was getting that woofer cabinet, the folds in it more agreeable with higher frequencies to get that crossover point up. And I think it's probably, where is it? About 800? 800. So yeah, they went up an octave.
Wow. That's incredible. And just thinking about that, I mean, just having the, and this was before a lot of 3D modeling, right? You were just testing, building and testing.
Yes.
Wow. How many prototypes do you think we went through?
No idea.
I saw a half a dozen in the back room when I started in '99. So I don't know how much before or after that, but
wow.
Delgado is a very iterative person. So he went through a bunch.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, and so some of the other questions that we were getting, there's a lot of people who are interested in, sort of Paul's ideas. Obviously the efficiency was a big story. Obviously horn loading was the key to that, and having a two-way was really important. But the thought process is from a crossover standpoint. Was it a wide crossover? Was it a steep slope crossover? What was he looking at back then?
Back then, I know that he was looking at M-derived networks, which are exceedingly sharp crossover frequency. I really don't know what Roy ended up with. I suspect there's a bit of that in there.
Yeah. Maybe if he doesn't jump on, we'll just make it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know for a fact that there's some brick walls. I mean, as you look at it from an engineering standpoint, it's pretty steep, and there's a lot of bits and pieces in that network between the input and the output. So a lot of shelves there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the complete schematic on the latest or what the active layout is on the new one, but
Yeah. I know it's steep slope, and the efficiency is always the key, right? We continue to go back to that, but yeah, I love the idea that he had to really figure out the bass part of it to, the horn part of it seemed to be fairly covered as far as how far we could get it down to. But the new driver apparently is amazing. The compression driver on that horn.
Yes, it's no slouch. I mean, it is an expensive compression driver.
I remember when,
and it's modified with some Delgado secret sauce.
One per user.
no, that's not beer.
No.
Beer
might have had something to do with it.
I was about to say that.
Oh, and so we're getting some really interesting questions. One question was, did Paul Klipsch ever talk to either one of you guys about what he envisioned for the company after he was gone? Where he hoped it would go?
Not specifically to me.
No.
But I mean, he was well into his 80s before he sold it.
Right. Yeah, I was just wondering if he had any hopes or any thoughts. I think, in my opinion, he'd probably be pretty happy that the Jubilee was finally coming out mass to everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's obviously concentrated on the high end, the big speakers, the smaller stuff. Obviously, you have to have it to have a business, but it did not interest him at all.
He had affectionate terms for those.
He did, yes. We'll not go there.
It's a family show. Well, thanks for joining us, Roy. There he is.
I am back. I'm going to resign as president of the Itty Bladder Club.
I don't know, man. I think you got probably another couple of terms in you. One of the questions that we had that I want to throw out there, and this is a very interesting question because I think it opens up a whole can of worms, which we love to do around here. Is there any possibility of reintroducing the chorus loudspeaker?
No.
There is not.
No.
Okay. Do you want to talk about
the chorus essentially replaced the cornwall.
Right.
Well, when you look at what a speaker offers, how it fits in the line, Hunter's absolutely right. The chorus was supposed to replace the cornwall, and we brought the cornwall back. We brought the Forte back because it did fit well between the Heresy and the cornwall.
Right.
We're not going to bring the quartet back because it's not going to fit. It was supposed to replace the Heresy. So if we brought the chorus back, it would be what's in a cornwall in a different box.
Gotcha. So redundancy.
Yeah,
especially with the new horn on.
Huh?
Especially with the new horn on the current cornwall.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I understand. Look, I get it. A chorus sounded freaking awesome. It did. But the things that we've done with the Cornwall Ford, when you put it up against an older chorus, they overlap too much. Now, and I forget the gentleman's name, but as I was coming out of the little privy, I was told about a question that somebody had asked, which caused me to think a lot, and to the point where I lost my buzz. So thank you very much. The question had something to do. The question had something that it asked of all the things that Paul Klipsch taught you. Well, what is the one thing that you basically have learned that you still apply to speakers. And I thought, that's a very good question. Because Paul Klipsch, there's a lot of bits and pieces and stuff that Paul Klipsch and I used to talk about a lot. And I've said this often. Paul Klipsch was 82 years old when I came to work for him, and he was not content. He was always wanting to know, always wanting to push. And Trey and Hunter, you guys were in the lab. You know how Paul was. I mean, he was like constantly, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. I mean, when I came to Klipsch, he was working on steep slope filters. And so when he was telling me this question, I began to think about, what really was like the overlying principle that has kind of just stuck with me of all the things that Paul Klipsch has taught me about speakers. And I think ultimately what that would be is that keep it true to life. Paul Klipsch was he used to go to symphonies and stuff. I played in bands. Trey, we had parties at your house with live bands, and Hunter, and we always used to jam at your house with the big MCM systems and then the 600 systems. And ultimately, what it boils down to is the live music. And so I think everything that Paul Klipsch had taught me about that eventually has to lead to that. That it is about the life experience, that it is, all these little things that we've learned, track tricks, wide dispersion phasing plugs, steep slopes, overhung motors, linearized motors, lightweight diaphragms, diffraction, distortion, polar coverage, phase response. I mean, all those little things ultimately, and even Paul would say, a good sounding loudspeaker will measure well, but not a speaker that measures well will not always sound good. So there's always something missing. And so all those little things, put them together, it ultimately it came down to what attracted me to Klipsch in the first place. When I came to interview and I heard the Klipsch horns, and I played in a band. I was playing in a band at the time, and I said, Paul, I play in a live band, and I was one of those guys that went to all the music stores to hear all the cool speakers, right? I wasn't going to buy any because I didn't have any money, right? But I went to go hear them, and when I heard the Klipsch horns, it's like, I play in a live band, Paul, and I've never heard a speaker that can do that. Right. And so I became very adamant and that I wanted to know how you get there. So all those little things, it really does come back to a live experience. All those things. And I think that's one thing that I don't think you can ever stop improving on. Like the Jubilee, Hunter was talking about this, the compression driver. Hunter's right. It's an expensive driver, but it's also got a lot of tech in it. And not just tech, but tech that advances the state of the art. You know what I'm saying? It sounds so effortless. And then, I put that little extended, the secret sauce because I wanted it to be spread out to a higher frequency because we have that in the Cornwall and the Heresy and in the Forte, right? I wanted that in the Jubilee as well because, we know it's not a gimmick. We know that does advance the state of the art. And so how can we have a state of the art speaker, the Jubilee, Paul's Jubilee, and not have that? So it's like, luckily Paul and I had talked about that. We talked about a lot. We also used to talk about Trey, but we won't go there. There was just a bunch of stuff that we talked about that we tried. Back then we had a machinist assigned to engineering. Remember Hunter?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a machinist. That he would, if Paul had a hair up his butt and he wanted to try something, we would do up the drawing so the machinist would do this.
And Paul was a machinist himself. Before we had one, he would machine it.
Do you remember, Hunter? Remember the day, Hunter? I'm sure you remember this. I was just talking to Mike Dyer. No, was it Mike Dyer? I forget who I was talking to. Anyway, just outside, about the day Paul Klipsch got kicked out of his own model shop.
Yeah.
By Ricky Robbins. Remember that? Because
Yeah.
he almost cut his fingers off.
But yeah. Paul liked to look with his fingers.
Yeah.
On the table saw, that's not very good.
Yeah, because Paul would like to do everything himself. He would like to do everything. And he says, Paul, I remember Rick was telling him, that's what you hired me for. That's what I'm supposed to do. You're not going to hurt yourself in my machine, in my model shop. And Paul's going like, well, I was just trying.
What I think is great about all this is that this is being our first museum live stream. We are going to have so much time over the next years to unpack some really great stories. But I want to pause right now, and I want to ask each of you individually, because I know the crowd would love to hear this. What is your favorite Paul Klipsch story? And it has to be one that you can tell in a family setting. I would love.
Geez, that would be my 20th then.
Yeah. But I'd love to know just some amazing things about your interaction with him. Being it's his birthday week, and being that we are here because of what he started. Trey, let's start with you, and then I'd like to hear from Jim, and then Roy. If you could just let me know what's your favorite Paul story.
Well, I'm going to tie this back into what Paul was talking about a little bit ago, about the passion and how Paul had passion for what he did, and
people.
That passion come from his love of music. He told me they taught him how to play, but more importantly, they taught him how to love music when he was in college. And that carried through him through the years. And I guess my favorite story of Paul was when he told me how he proposed to Valerie. He had courted her like she was a high school teacher in Hope, Arkansas. He'd go show up in her class and sit in the back of the class and wait for her to get out of class until they finally run him out of the school. But he said that she was at the house. He was over there to see her, and she had sat down on her piano. She was a classical pianist, for people that don't know. And she started playing a Rachmaninoff piece. And he said, when she got through playing that piece, I dropped to one knee and proposed to her instantly. Because the piece of music moved him so much, and that it come from her moved him so much for him that he just at that point decided to pop the question to her. So,
well, and then she cooked for him, and for sure. Because man, she could cook.
Yeah, that story, and then the story of him changing mathematical equations from his old book 30, 40 years after he wrote the equation the first time.
He said he had to disagree with the author.
Yeah.
He was the author.
And, Valerie, go get me that old book. He'd open it up, mark the date, change what he was making, mark the date again, close the book. And, this was an old ledger from the 40s. And, this was in 2000. So it was unbelievable to me to have somebody with that much history, but that much knowledge. Speakers were easy for Paul, I think, compared to some of the other stuff he did. And because I think it was because it was so much fun for him. It was entertainment.
Hunter?
Well, I always stress in tours that loudspeakers was the man's fifth career. Whatever he decided to get into, he did it hell bent. For example, just in his hobbies of model railroading, we have a folder that shows that he studied this locomotive for 23 years before he executed it.
Wow.
So that's some passion on a toy.
Yeah.
And I guess the most memorable thing for me would be twice when he became the godfather of my children.
That's awesome, Hunter.
Funny how it always comes back around to life, huh?
Yeah.
Well, because mine is very similar, or a spiritual nature too, Hunter. When I got saved, he came to my baptism. He went, but in typical Paul style, right? He shows up. He comes up to the pastor and says, "So where did they keep the sacrificial wine?"
Did he take notes?
yeah, to correct the pastor, right?
Oh man, yeah, that all goes back to the good old BS button, right? At some point.
Oh man, that's just Paul. He had an awesome sense of humor. Some people, some people would just sit there, and I'm laughing, and they're going like, "Did he say something funny?" And they just, I would tell you need to stand up in your chair.
Yeah, I like it when he told the story. He had a dozen oysters, but only 3 of them worked.
I gotta say, the efficiency of the jokes, speaks well of the man. Sometimes the one-liners are just insane. So funny.
Efficiency would probably be the number one thing that I would attribute to him. And I think it came from his father. It came from engineering at the turn of the 20th century. Engineers were considered the great bringers of efficiency onto society across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am sure his father drilled that into him from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And they were efficient. They only had 1 kid.
Yeah, they were.
And a pretty good one.
All packed in. Oh man, you guys, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I think that's just fantastic. We've got a few more questions I want to get to.
Well, there's one, Matt, that I saw from a guy named Taco. Would Paul approve of the port and the heresy? Yes, because that's what he told me he wanted to do. I remember I was talking to Rob and Paul one day. I said, so what can we do with the heritage line? I said, well, I know. I mean, Paul, again, never was, he had plans. He had these plans that he wanted to do. And unfortunately for you guys, he told me. And so now you're going to have to trust me. Haha. And so one of those was, in fact, that's why you went to the 28 to begin with, and the Heresy 3. We were getting it ready to port it. And so would he approve of it? I want to make sure this is very clear, because I read on forums and stuff like this, and it kind of disappoints me. I'm trying to stick true to the things that Paul Klipsch wanted to do with the speakers. This is not about Roy Delgado. Paul Klipsch was my friend, and a lot of the things that he ran out of time. Paul Klipsch had a lot of things that he wanted to do. He just ran out of time, and so I just wanted to see, when the opportunity came, when Rob Stanley brought this up about what can we do, I said, "Oh, Paul had some ideas." He had some ideas, and I think we should bring those ideas to the table, because if he were alive, this is what he would want to do. So yes, he would have approved to the port and the back, because that's what he wanted to do. So, haha.
I think he'd like that you used the Tractix equation to get the port to do what it does.
Well, we showed him all the data that we did. We did an internal white paper on tractor exports. For how it was, how it just wasn't good for horn equations. How it was good for limiting compression before, or more output before compression and chuffing and stuff like that. I mean, we did an internal white paper on that, and we had the port de jure, because at that time, I don't know if you remember, Hunter, but there was at one time there was port patents coming out like left and right.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the power port and JBO port? I mean, they were just coming out. And so, and I thought, I wonder if the Tractrix would be, would work. And we showed him that data. And again, Paul was not set in his ways. I mean, he just, I
He
can't.
followed the data.
Yeah, no, Hunter, we talk about follow the signs today. Well, guess what? He did.
Well,
And then, of course, it isn't just about the data, it's how does it sound? Are we missing anything?
he didn't like people messing with his Klipsch horn a lot, though.
No, he didn't. And you know what?
He'd get downright belligerent.
Well, he in the beginning, he gave his drawings to everybody and wanted everybody to make them. But he got soured on it because everybody pretty much screwed it up.
Yeah. No, Hunter, they were making their modifications, thinking they were doing something to improve it. And that's when Paul said, guys, just cut it like I told you. You know what I'm saying? And no, you're right, Hunter. He soured on the idea.
Mhm.
Why? I think he once told me, and I know he told Trey, why do you want to mess up a perfectly good pair of speakers?
He didn't put it quite like that, Roy.
Well, this is the family hour.
It is the family hour. And I want to kind of open this up to everybody, all three of you guys. You spent a lot of time with Paul, and really kind of had an idea of who he was as a person outside of the speaker world. Jim mentioned he had other careers, but just as a human. And I spent a very short time around him. Our overlapping time was very small, but the CES that Paul Jacobs spoke about earlier was one of them. I think I had ended up photographing him for the first time ever at that CES. But as a person, just if you could maybe share with the group a little bit about what you learned from him, outside of the CE world.
Well, Paul was very compassionate, and Paul was also very, I can't say that word, but philanthropic. Help me out, Hunter.
Philanthropic.
Oh, I did say it right now. Okay. He paid it forward a lot. People didn't know that.
It was,
Yeah, I mean-
as I worked around the area, before I went to work for Klipsch, doing audio installs and satellites and all kinds of other stuff. One of the things I did was go out and help churches get their audio working. And
Me too.
a lot of that. And I spent a lot of that time not, I never took money for that because it was helping the church,
It was a ministry.
How many times I showed up and there was Klipsch speakers hanging or setting or somewhere in the building that Paul had given them to make their church sound better.
Well, that
And
speaker
Paul-
behind you, bro. That
Oh.
speaker behind you.
Do what?
That speaker behind you.
Oh, yeah.
El Dorado, right, Hunter? El Dorado Baptist Church.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a good example. There was, and I've seen some pretty scary uses of those speakers in those churches too.
I'm like, those aren't meant for U-boats. You know that, right? So, Hunter, what do you got to say?
It just occurred to me, he philanthropic. We heard in his later years how much scholarship money he was giving out to his home school. And most people don't realize he started doing that in 1960. So at 1960, he was what, 56 years old?
Mm-hmm. And he was already
already
paying it forward.
Yes. And all of those scholarships, in order to be eligible, the candidate had to profess the belief in a supreme being.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know when after he passed, Roy and I, and with some of our families and Valerie, went out to New Mexico for a event of one of those givings, and that was quite the event. I really enjoyed that trip.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody wants some fun pictures of Roy, just holler.
Yeah, I got some too. Definitely have some of those.
Hey, Trey, some of your warrants aren't up yet, bro.
It's the archives, man. Come on.
Archives.
Put them up. Bring them in there.
Well, gentlemen, we are quickly running out of time, and I want to say I feel like personally this has been a very successful first broadcast live stream for the museum. We've covered
awesome, man.
We covered so much ground. We had lots of special guests, but
and
Trey, right? Fantastic. So I want to answer some more questions, but before we wrap this up, because I know we've got other things that are going on tonight, I want to again thank our sponsors. Glenn, if you could pop up the sponsor sheet. I want to do a shout out to the Hope Tourism Commission. It's really important with this new welcome center, with the new visitor center for the museum, that we have the foot traffic here and have the ability to give people their first interaction with Klipsch, what it means to the community, what it means to the history of audio. And so we couldn't do that without the Hope Tourism Commission. And then also Farmers Bank and Trust, who has helped fund all of the things that the museum is doing today. We want to thank Apt Electronics. Those guys are great. Audio Classics, Audio Video Therapy, Paducah Home Theater. Corey Harrison, shout out to you for doing all you do for the museum, audio advice, and of course, Klipsch itself for sponsoring and helping out in any way they can. They provided the giveaways. So again, 5 best questions. Roy's going to pick them in the chat, and then we'll contact you to send you out some sweet Klipsch gear. Guys, do you have anything else you would like to say before we close out tonight? In addition to thanking everybody that helped. Thanks to Becky Moore, new executive director. Thanks to Paul Klipsch. Thanks to Barbie for joining us about the Dope from Hope. Anything else you guys would like to say to the group before we close out tonight?
Great.
How come I go first?
Because in my screen, you're number 1, bro. Go.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Left to right.
Left to right, huh? I guess the thing that about the museum, about the previous pilgrimages, and about Klipsch in itself, from the community standpoint, it's always impressed me the amount of I don't know what to call it, family love, for lack of a better term, that all these people from all over the world and all different types of everything come together and love this product because of the attachment they get to it from the audio or the media that they use it with. And that has always been, amazing to me that many people come together, and forget about all the other stuff that happens around and in and around the world. All that stuff gets thrown out and it gets hyper focused in, let's have a good time, listen to music, or let's entertain ourselves. And that is probably one of my most prized possessions of knowledge when it comes to all this stuff. Is it's like I told Hunter when I took my entrance exam to come to work with this company 22 years ago. He goes, what's the worst thing you bring to the table? I said, I can barely spell my name, but I know how to use spell check. He said, well, what's the best thing you bring to this? I said, my love of all this stuff. I used a different word, but my love of this stuff is what I bring to this table. And, I think over the years, my passion kind of stands out when I start talking about this stuff. But
well, that's what we call you, Trey, the secret weapon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How about you, Jim? What do you got in closing comments? We're going to do more of these.
I think it's just the diversity of the man's life.
Yeah.
He's been all over the place, and a gutsy kind of guy. I mean, at the age of 24, he moves to South America.
Yeah.
Yeah. He moved to South America for the tamales, Hunter.
Yeah.
the winter fruit.
Yeah.
No, you're right, Hunter. He moves to Chile, and then he comes back. He's in California for Stanford, and then Houston. I mean, 5th career, bro.
Mm-hmm.
At 42, started Klipsch.
Right? I mean, he got close to so many major people in all different fields.
Mm-hmm.
When he was doing his oil prospecting gig, he was working for the number 2 man in the history of oil prospecting in the United States. And they were buds with the number 1 guy.
Right.
You know, I would agree with that 100%. You know, for me, the inspiration that is there is it kind of touches me to my core from the perspective of the DIY. You know, because I've kind of modeled my life after that as well. If you want to learn how to do something, you learn how to do it. It doesn't matter whether you have the opportunity or the access, you figure it out and you talk to the people who will help you get there and get it done. That DIY spirit to me was also very punk rock, whether Paul Klipsch knew it or not. Mm-hmm. It was, I don't know that I've never been given a guitar lesson in my entire life, but I'm going to play guitar and I'm going to figure it out. And there aren't the tools to measure out how to even make a guitar, but I'm going to figure out how to build one and I'm then going to make it. And so I love those stories about him just saying, we're getting into this and this is where we're going. And he followed his heart. You know, but it was also, he had a true North compass that was not about bullshit. It was not about learning anything on the side that could taint any of this. It was the purism that came through that. So to me, that's what touches me is anybody could do it. Just set your mind to it and be smart and learn what's available. Learn from everybody that you can touch. Those 2 things I took away from that in the short time that I was able to spend around Paul Klipsch.
Well, he knew where he wanted to end up, man.
Yeah.
I mean that internal compass, whatever you want to call it, he knew where he wanted to end up, and that independent spirit that can-do attitude. You know, it was very hard to. I mean, I heard I used to be in rooms with other engineers. No, Paul, we can't do that. And he goes, well, why not? You know, why not? And I'm going like, yeah, why not?
there was a saying that was out in the time that Paul grew up, and I still use it a lot today. Is can whooped can't till he could.
Till he could. No, I mean you know, when Paul would ask me a question, you know, this is what I was thinking we're doing, you know, so what do you think? And I go, let's find out. And that was Paul. That, you know, that's what Paul told me. I you know, in fact, like Trevor, you know, I work with him on the commercial side. You know, they want to know, a customer wants to know if we can do this and this, you know, he says, well, Roy's never going to say no. He's going to say, let's find out. Mm-hmm. and that's Paul. Yeah. That is the thing that I probably learned the most about Paul, because he just in life, in speakers, in anything, he was he was very optimistic. Let's find out.
Yeah, curious even. Yeah. I love that. I love that spirit. And Roy, on that sentiment, I've got a group that I want to thank. I want to thank some people for joining us tonight. We've had an incredible first live broadcast, and I appreciate, first of all, Trey Cannon and Jim Hunter and Chief Bonehead Roy Delgado for joining me on this. I want to thank Paul Jacobs for joining us. I want to thank Becky Moore for stopping in and giving us some info about all the cool stuff that's going on this week. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube. I want to thank Glenn Mosby and Bill Mosby for joining us to contribute to this. Just so you know, Glenn and Amanda Knight are the ones that are behind the Klipsch Museum YouTube page. And every Tuesday we release a new to us vintage. Hey, there's Bill as well. Release a new to us vintage clip. So follow and subscribe to the YouTube page for the museum, and also follow us on social media. Check out our website at klipschmuseum.org. Everything that you need to know about how to donate, how to volunteer, how to be part of this group. Really, what we're doing is we're preserving the ideas of Paul Klipsch. We have an amazing museum here in Hope, Arkansas, an amazing campus with 4 distinct buildings that do all sorts of different things. The new Welcome Center was just launched this morning. Swing by and listen to period audio in each of those rooms. But thank you to all of our guests, and look forward to us doing this often. We really are encouraged by the response. We will find those 5 great questions and reach out to you guys and send out the prizes over the next couple of weeks. And in closing, thank you guys so much for joining.
Well, I want to give one more shout out. The visitor centers, because Becky's listening, if I call it the field house, the visitor center looks freaking amazing. Craig, Eldon, Hunter, Ms. Joy, Karen, Donna, Jenny.
Tim, yeah.
I mean, everyone that helped. This freaking place looks amazing.
Ian,
it is.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yep. And a special shout out to Richard Groves, who could not join us tonight, but I know is watching on a very large television somewhere, drinking some very expensive alcohol. Thank you, President of the organization, or Chairman of the organization, Richard Groves, for making all this possible as well. But yeah, if you guys are cool, we should log out and maybe head over to the Founders Dinner tonight, and then invite everybody else to join us the rest of the week. Tomorrow night, again, 6 o'clock here at the Field House. Dinner and jazz, $25. It's the best deal going. Donate to the museum. It's a great fundraiser for us. We're looking forward to seeing you.
You can even write that off, can't you?
I think so. Tax donation.
Tax donation.
I'm not an accountant. I just play one on the live stream.
And if you can't, just say Hunter said you could.
Just say Hunter said you could.
Exactly.
That's what I always told Roy.
Yep. And also, yeah, and Travis makes a great point. If you would like to join the museum and become a museum member, we have all different levels of joining. Go to klipschmuseum.org. There's also a donations page if you just would like to donate and help support our cause, and also a volunteer sign up to be able to help preserve these buildings. We're looking for people who want to do everything from hang sheetrock to help us set up stereo systems, vintage systems in the room. So we're always looking for volunteers, and we so appreciate the City of Hope for helping us. And we're looking forward to being part of the downtown excitement and the walkability in downtown Hope and the revival that's going on down here. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Y'all too. Enjoyed it, guys.
That was awesome.